so glad that you asked this question, and I've been thinking very hard about how to answer it because I don't want to trivialize autism or being neurodivergent. And there are some symptoms that other people will relate to, because like human experience does exist on a spectrum, and there are things that you will relate to, but I wanted to go over the things that I noticed in myself when I first started to question my autism and when I really started to believe it. I was diagnosed with ADHD at age 16. I sought out a diagnosis for BPD in my early 20s, but was not diagnosed. And I really just was lost for a long time until I was about 35, give or take. And that's when I started to really question if I had autism. Up until that, I had no idea. My partner, we realized he was autistic a few years before me, but like I spent many years knowing he was autistic, but not seeing it as myself because I couldn't relate to it. Every autistic person is different, and that's important to remember. So like my experience is my experience, and if you are questioning if you're autistic in any capacity, I highly suggest that you just do more research. Look into it. What's the harm in looking into it? Because even if you're not autistic, you might find social supports or accommodations that might help you improve your life and make life easier for you. So I have 5 things that I noticed that really help me understand myself better and my neurodivergence. Number 1, an inability to keep up with life. There are many reasons for this, and I blamed a lot of it on my ADHD for a long time. I had a lot of time blindness. I still do. I'm late to everything. I get really hyper fixated on a task, and like I lose myself in it. And that really, really makes life hard to manage when you cannot sense time. I can tell time perfectly fine, but I cannot sense time. And I started to notice that I wasn't just keeping up with it wasn't just time. It was like my organization was getting way worse at home. My house was getting messier. My self-care was getting worse. It just, as I aged and more responsibilities came my way, it got harder to manage. And I noticed that I was also stuck in a lot of routines, like same routines, doing the same thing all the time, but I wasn't making any goals for forward progress. And it's really hard to make a goal, set a goal and go for it because I'm so stuck in the routine of what I know is comfortable and safe that it's hard for me to change and go forward with my goal. Number 2, I was a completely different person at work and at home. This also carries over to like my relationships. I was different in each relationship, but not to the extent that it was at work and home. Work Megan was a badass. Like I could answer calls, I could take calls, I was assertive, I was organized, I was in control of things. I was a manager at Panera for many years. So I was responsible for scheduling and training and just like getting people to be good employees, and then I was a personal assistant, which takes a lot of cognitive abilities, and I could manage that perfectly fine. But at home, Megan ignored her phone calls, literally ignored every phone call, never texted back, didn't set doctor's appointments, had trouble showering. My house became messier and messier, especially after I became a parent. Oh my gosh, it got so hard. But I could do all these things at work, and I would try and convince myself that I was able to do it, but it was just so hard. On the same note, number 3, being outside of my home absolutely exhausted me. Socializing became such a depletion of my energy. And we're not just talking about the introverted way of you need time to rest to recover. This is I would get off of work on Friday and sleep all weekend just to be able to go back to work on Monday. And it was absolutely horrific for me to go. I hated it. I loved the jobs that I had. I worked at this church and I loved it. But I was trying to pretend as this good Christian girl, which I'm not even Christian anymore. And I was just trying to be this good girl and not look like I was a big freaking mess behind the scenes. So that was the 2 roles playing. And that just added so much stress. I couldn't show up as myself. So then I was wearing this mask, and this mask was so heavy to carry. I couldn't differentiate. Nothing felt safe. Nothing felt safe to disclose because I just felt like people were going to be like, oh my God, what is wrong with you, when they saw what was behind the mask. And I felt a lot of shame over that. And it made leaving the house incredibly hard. Everything that, if I had to go to my mom's house, if I didn't have a way out of the house, and I love going over there, but that's not the problem. It's I have to know when I'm going to be leaving, how long I'm going to be there, and have a way out. Because anxiety will get into me, and I have to, I reached this, I have a social battery, and once I reach the end of it, I have to go. It's nothing about the people, it's me, and I cannot handle it. And once I am out of a social battery, I go into meltdown territory really fast, which I don't show in front of people, so the meltdown will come later. And it's just, then I burn out. Number 4, ARFID. So this is a disordered food thing. I don't want to say it because so it's adverse restrictive food intake disorder, something like that. And so basically, I have safe foods. I have foods that I know that I can eat all the time, that I love, and I eat like to the point that it makes me almost embarrassed. I right now it's strawberry Pockies. Pockies are the absolute best thing ever in the world, and I could eat them all day, every day, and that's all I want to eat. Before it was vanilla ice cream, and I would buy tubs of vanilla ice cream and eat. That's all I would eat. And I know it's not good for me, and I'm trying really hard to start making dinners and incorporating more food. But when my stress load is too high, and when I'm tapped out emotionally and mentally, I get very regimented with my food and my safe foods, and I can only eat my safe foods. And then it goes borderline OCD for me. So it's a mess. Number 5, burnout. I reached a level of burnout at my last job because I was pretending to be somebody else, going to work, pretending to be okay, while I was still trying to get over the grief of losing my best friend and my mentor, and just trying to be a normal person again. And as I put down masks, as I stopped wearing them, it's been really hard to pick them back up. And I've tried to tell people that I am autistic, and they get, oh, well, everybody's a little bit autistic, and oh, well, it's okay. Like, they don't understand, because I look normal, whatever that means, but like, I'm hyperlexic, I'm hyperverbal. I've always been really good with my words. I started to read really young, and I think that has confused people into thinking that I am some sort of like emotionally mature adult. I'm not. Burnout for me was like a total and complete burnout. Like, I'm not just talking like I was a little off. Like, I got physically ill. I went to the hospital many times. I developed POTS. I don't even know if that's related to this, or if that's related to me being sick from the panini thingy, that went around, the viral thing. But my body shut down, and it became really hard to manage. I was getting vertigo all the time. I literally laid in bed for like 3 weeks, and then after that, it's just been a slow recovery process of trying to figure out what overstimulates me and what doesn't. I didn't shower, I didn't brush my teeth, I didn't take care of myself, and it was incredibly hard to just live. And I don't want to, I know everyone can reach burnout, but autistic burnout is incredibly debilitating. It's a disability. It truly is. Neurodivergence exists on a spectrum. There's many things that could be neurodivergent. It's not just autism, it's ADHD, it's personality disorders, it's OCD, it's trauma. I could not tell you where my trauma ends from childhood, from my SA in childhood, to where my ADHD, to my autism, where one ends and the other begins. I couldn't tell you, because they're so overlapping and enmeshed, and it's intersectional. And I think that if you have any of those experiences, or if you relate to anything that I said, look into it more. I highly suggest it. It's always worth learning more about it.